Okay, so one of the last components of the PMP is the B5, which is the corrective strategies. This component will also be used for part of the final exam. So I wanted to go through a couple of the documents that I've uploaded onto Blackboard. So while you've made all your rules and your procedures, you've taught them, you've done everything Harry Wong will tell you to do, but sometimes prevention is not enough and you're going to have to respond and have some corrective strategies for when students are disruptive or have non-compliant behaviors. So in B5, you're going to complete a functional behavior analysis, and you're going to collect and analyze data on a student that you have chosen. Then you're going to write a written report from the analysis and implement some interventions or replacement behavior. Chapter 12 of the textbook, Responding Effectively to Problem Behaviors, is helpful when looking at this component. And then discuss your plan for working with parents and students and other professionals to help resolve and maintain the appropriate behavior. So I'm going to go over the components of B5 and the actual information that I've put on Blackboard. So first you're going to do an ABC recording activity. A stands for antecedent, B is behavior, and C is consequence. We went through this when we did our FBA lecture. This is just observing the student. You want to watch the student for a 10-minute period, 15-minute period, whatever it is, and you want to see what the problem behavior looks like. And you want to record that information there. Then you want to think about what is happening right before that problem behavior occurs. And then what happens? After the student exhibits that problem behavior, what happens? What is the consequence for that action? So you're really thinking about those things the whole time you're watching the student, and there could be multiple problem behaviors. You're going to choose one that you're going to choose to work with. And this part is important, the supports that are needed. Which of these or which components here do you need to help with your plan? And then most importantly, the star here is, does the student receive something or avoid something with that behavior? What is the function or purpose of the behavior? And that's something that you'll have to reflect on and think on after you've completed your ABC recording activity. Next, you're going to generate a written report from the analysis in which you choose and implement interventions that utilize problem-solving methods to resolve problem behaviors. Now, principles for dealing with inappropriate behavior. You're going to choose strategies that are consistent with your goal of creating a safe and caring classroom environment. You're going to keep the instructional program going with a minimum amount of disruption. You want to consider the context in deciding whether an action constitutes misbehavior. Be timely and accurate when you respond to problem behaviors. And then match the severity of the strategy with the behavior you're trying to analyze, and then be culturally responsive to students when you choose these strategies. So while you're looking in Chapter 12, there are a few different problem-solving methods to help you resolve problem behaviors. But if it's something like we just had in that previous example, where you can teach the student an appropriate replacement behavior, then that's what you could do. But there are nonverbal interventions that you could do, such as facial expressions, eye contact, hand signals, being closer in proximity to the student. You could try a nonverbal a non-direct verbal intervention, a direct verbal intervention, or even a deliberate non-intervention. And those are on pages 334, 335. If you want to look at some of the examples from the teachers in the textbook by using iMessages, that's a good self-monitoring technique. Now, if the issues are more serious, you definitely want to think about the replacement behavior. You really want to think about the function of the behavior. That's why your written part is so important in explaining what your plan will be. Next, you're going to make a plan of how you're going to communicate with the student and the parent. What kind of communication are you going to have? You're going to have behavior logs, you're going to have a contract, you're going to have some form of self-evaluation, self-monitoring. This is your choice of how you're going to do it based on your problem behavior. Okay, here's an example that I could use for my student. The game plan, the problem of the behavior is the making friends component that I was talking to you about in the supportive strategies. Why do you think it happens? That's the function of the behavior. And then the alternative behavior choices for each of the reasons why we think it's happening. And then why is that plan good? And then see if the game plan works, and the student and the teacher may sign this type contract. And then how you communicate with parents will be something that you write in your write-up. And I'll show you an example. I have this one posted on Blackboard too of a way you could communicate with parents. All right, and then last, you want to count how many times they do the replacement behavior. For example, how many times they smiled, how many compliments they were given. This is a 10-minute period, and this is called a count tune because you're just counting. And there's another example of a count tune in your textbook, but it's just you have a date that this starts, a date that this ends if you were doing this on a regular basis, and when you would review it. For the purpose of this assignment, you're just going to, observe once, make a plan, work with the student, talk with the student about the replacement behavior or whatever your strategy would be, and then observe the student one time. Of course, the student is not going to have huge gains. You're only working with them a few very limited times here. So in the course of this assignment, you're not going to see the students jump to it's not going to be perfect. This is only, you've watched their behavior, you've worked with them, and then you've observed them. So this is not quick. If you observe them 15 times, 10 times for a week, etc., then you would see big gains. You're not being graded on how the student has progressed, but yet your progression in helping to teach the student. And here's another example of a behavior report card daily, and it's like a Likert scale, the A, B, C, and D. And it has a place where you can write in, and then it has the teachers, initials, students, and parents. And this is a really good way to keep all people on the same page of how the student is doing. Now these are the components of your B5. You also will be doing something very similar to this for your final exam. So while you're collecting data on your ABC recording and finding the problem behavior on students, you could be taking notes on other students that you feel like you may be able to use for the final exam. I will post more information about the final exam next week, just so that you can go ahead and start thinking about that student in case you wanted to jump on working on that before Thanksgiving like we had talked about. But anyway, if you have any questions about this, I wanted to go over each of these and do some examples in class, but we did get a class period behind. So if any of these are confusing or if you have a specific question, please don't hesitate to email me. Thanks.